Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is not actually my review of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Sadly, I got it on the PS4, and literally the day of, my PS4 crapped out. I had to send it back to get it fixed and all that shit, and I didn't get it back until Wednesday, so I have literally played the prologue of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So sadly, and not so sadly, this will be my review of a horror game that I loved. A game that honestly has made me wonder if the horror genre has died, or at least for the time being. I really hope it makes a comeback because I think this was an excellent game, and it was from the last generation. Specifically, this is my late review of Condemned Criminal Origins. I played it on the Xbox One because, you know, backwards compatibility, because it's an Xbox 360 game. So I really enjoy the story of this game. You play as Agent Thomas, an FBI investigator, who's sent to a crime scene in order to investigate a serial killing. And while on said scene, you suddenly get a whiff of something, and it turns out that you're not alone, and there may be somebody else there. So you go looking for that guy, and man, the game just kind of picks up right there and goes. By that I mean, when you're in this building, there's crazed junkies, there's like hardcore badasses trying to kill you. And on top of that, well, you lose your gun while turning the power back on in the building, and guess who gets it? Yeah, a bad guy. A bad guy gets your gun. And through a lovely cutscene, he pins you to a wall, he shoots another agent, and he shoots a cop, and then he throws you out a window. Yeah, so it's really just really not a good day for your character. Obviously, that is where things go very wrong for him, and after that, you have to find out what happened. You have to try and prove your innocence. You have to try and prove that you did not kill those officers, and you end up stumbling upon something much larger and really quite interesting. I will say that the game takes a bit of an interesting, like, paranormal sci-fi turn, but I love it. I love the way they do it in this game. I love the way they do it in this story in general. This was back when they took the time to build a frightening atmosphere and then fuck with your mind. And I find that very important. The messing with your mind part is really important because I find that scary. When you see things, you're like, oh, what did I just see? Why is that not a real thing? Things like that, I find that far scarier. And this game does a very good job at doing that. Just having your character essentially hallucinate, but are they really hallucinations? You know, it's kind of that thing. And I'll talk about it here because I don't really know where else to talk about it, but I love the atmosphere in this game. This is one of those games that does a great job of building a really creepy atmosphere throughout. From the junkies, from the hallucinations, just from the world that you inhabit, they do an excellent job of making it creepy and spooky and just it kind of disturbs you and it messes with you, which is great. I love that. On to the audio. It's a horror game, so audio is very important. Admittedly, the voiceover work is not amazing. I mean, this isn't a brand new game. It is admittedly at a point where I wish the voiceover work was better. I mean, it's made by Monolith. They're not the hugest of studios, but they have made some fairly big games. So you would hope that the voiceover work would have been better. But beyond that, there's the far more important sound effects of the world, and those, on the other hand, are excellent. The atmosphere that the audio helps build is just fantastic. It really creeps you out. Noises, just random noises, you even just kicking a bucket can get you kind of jumpy and on edge. The sound of the combat in this game is very deep. It sounds visceral. It sounds mean. So I love that aspect of the audio. As for the gameplay, it's a first-person game, but it's not so much a shooter because when you do find guns, which you do find guns throughout the game, they are generally very low on ammo. You don't have extra magazines. You basically pick up the weapon and whatever ammo is in that, that's what you've got to go with. You don't strip ammo from other weapons. And I like that because it's a more realistic approach. You're not going to take the time in these situations to pick up a gun and be like, oh, I'm going to pop out all the shells. I'm going to pop out the rounds from this magazine. You're not going to have the time for that. You're going to use the ones you got, grab something new. The rest of the combat is melee based. You do have a taser which can stun people, and then you can go at them with whatever weapons you can rip off the wall, like conduits, pipes, fire axes, anything you can find basically that can be used as a blunt instrument, or occasionally edged instrument. But point being, it's melee combat and it's very sluggish, but that's not a bad thing. I feel like it lends realism to the combat. Not only is it a little sluggish, it's very visceral, it's meaty. Like when you hit guys or break their necks or whatever you do, you feel it. It feels vicious, it feels mean. I like it. Because it is sluggish though, and it is melee, you do still feel scared. You don't feel like you did in like, say, Doom 3, where yes, it's pitch black, but you have a shotgun, so nothing's really that scary beyond startling you in jump scares. Which I don't even like the term jump scares because it's just something startling, it's not really scary. That being said, there are, you know, the startling moments in this game, some jumpy bits, but they work so well because of the haunting atmosphere that this game builds. And because even though you may have a shotgun, even though you have some form of weapon, you still feel very vulnerable in this world. Also, I've got to address one thing that I absolutely love in this game, and that is the investigation system. When you're tracking the serial killer, or just in general, when you're trying to find your way through certain areas, you follow clues using not real investigative techniques, but like taking pictures of evidence, sending it to the crime lab, somehow magically transporting samples to the crime lab, and it's just a cool added element to the game that I really enjoy. I think it's fun, and I wish there were more games that had like actually investigative like gameplay. As for the controls, like I stated, they're a bit sluggish, and they're meant to be because, I mean, it's not meant to be I'm badass shooter guy. You're a guy who's meleeing his way through a bunch of crazed junkies and maniacs and weird, really horrifying mannequin people. If you ever play this game or have played this game, you will know what I mean by mannequin people, because mannequin people. Point being though, the controls work very well for this game. I do like them. I found them just as responsive as I needed them to be. I don't feel like they fail in any way, shape, or form. I feel like them being sluggish works for the game as a whole. Lastly, the graphics. I love the world they have built. I will admit that it may not have aged amazingly, but I will say the design of a lot of the enemies is very creepy, and it really does disturb you when you see some of these guys up close and personal. Like the mannequin people. God, the mannequin people. Which, let's get to that. This world is really run down. There's a lot of crime. The city itself looks really shitty and just, oh man, it's a bad place to be for anyone, basically. But one thing they did was build these amazing levels and areas out of that design, including a shopping mall, which is like hands down one of the scariest levels in any video game, because there's some weird mannequin moments, and like I said, there's the creepy mannequin people. Just the design that they put into this world is fantastic. While graphically it has not aged well, I still love the style that they have. Overall, if you couldn't tell, I love this game. I really do. I think this was an amazing horror game, and I really wish we could get back to that because it proves that you can have a first-person horror game with a terrifying atmosphere and combat. Unlike certain games that I may or may not have reviewed and don't love because of shit, lazy-ass gameplay. Just saying. I think it hails from a time when people were willing to build a truly scary atmosphere and knew how to screw with your brain in a great way, but also knew how to incorporate combat and keep it scary. I think that was fantastic. I loved that era of games. To put it simply, if you have an Xbox One and you want to play a scary game this October, I fully recommend Condemned Criminal Origins. Just 100% recommended. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me what your favorite horror game of this generation has been? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.